Welcome back to the channel, fellow aviators. I am excited to be with you today. As always, if you find some value in this content, please like, subscribe, and comment. It really does help out the channel. All right, so as many of you know, we got the full version of the A2A 600 Aero Commander a couple weeks ago. And since it's such a high fidelity, close to study level aircraft, I thought we would do something a little bit unique today. And that is, let's do some single engine operations. This is inspired by the fact that next month I am going away for training. And one of the training events that we have to do, we always have to do a single engine ILS approach. In fact, it's actually one of the main check ride items that you'll always do whenever you have multi-engine aircraft, which includes helicopters. I was doing the exact same check ride I do at my airline that I did with my helicopter operation, which would be 2 precision approaches, 2 non-precision approaches. 1 precision approach has to be single engine, hand flown. Almost always they give us an engine failure. That's generally how it works out to be. And I thought, let's try that with the Commander. And I will be honest, I have attempted this maneuver a couple times. Actually more than a couple, and I have not always been successful, so it's going to be a little exciting probably flight for us today. The only way I could get this to work, which is probably a little bit realistic, is I had to reduce the max payload. If you look down at the fuel, you'll see I just have the main tanks full. I tried this with both full tanks all the way filled up, and it was, I would say a disaster, but pretty close. So we're going to do that. But before we get started, I want to address kind of a unique design characteristic of the Autopilot system and cover a kind of a hidden keybind that I discovered. It took me a lot of effort to look this up, and I thought it might be very helpful for you all. So what we'll do now is I'm just going to run some previously recorded video, and then we will come back here through the magic of editing, and we will take off. All right, so that's the plan. Okay, so here's a scenario we often will find ourselves in. We've leveled off here at about 3,500 feet. We've already pulled back on our power a little bit, so we're just nice and level, and now we want to engage the autopilot. But the Aero Commander 600 has a little bit of a different setup. Normally, when you engage the autopilot, it will just kind of hold whatever attitude that you've selected. But you're going to find here, when I engage the autopilot, look at the artificial horizon and those command bars. Let's go ahead and engage the autopilot. The aircraft immediately pitches to the command bars. So we'll disengage our autopilot again here as I start to level out. And so we need to get those command bars down to our actual attitude. And this is a little bit different from a lot of aircraft that you've flown before, in that it doesn't hold the attitude. It holds where those command bars are set. And so this caught me out a couple times when I first started flying the Commander. As I was pitching up, and I'm like, well, what am I doing? What's going on? Look, I'm basically trimmed out. My hands are off the controls. Now, let's go ahead and look at the artificial horizon again and look at those command bars. There is a keybind that you can actually select that will adjust those command bars to your current attitude. And now when I engage the autopilot, we just get a slight little roll. And at this point, I'm kind of basically level. I can come down here, and now I can select altitude. And now you see we're holding our altitude at 4,000 feet, a little bit higher. I can make a slight adjustment on that, but you see the issue there. This keybind is actually kind of hidden. So let me go and show you where you can find this and how you can actually set this up so you don't have that issue. Now, of course, let me just backtrack 1 second before I do that. Those command bars are moved by this pitch that I'm highlighting right here. If I move those pitch, if I move the pitch, that's how you can move those command bars. But you'll find it's not very smooth, and we're already in altitude mode, so it's not going to respect that. So you can either dial them down that way, or you can actually have a command that moves those pitch command bars to where you need them to be, or your current setting. All right, so let me show you how you do that. So let's come, first thing we want to do is we'll go ahead and X out of here. we will go to our controls. Now I have the honeycomb alpha, and I've selected a button on the alpha for that. So first thing you want to do is come to assigned, or for you, it won't be assigned, but for me, I'll do assigned. And you're going to type in A600. These are the two commands that you want. A600 Autopilot Pitch Sync Press, A600 Autopilot Sync Release. You're going to put those on the same button. But there's one crucial step in here, and it's going to be on the release. Let's come in here. Set control on release. You need to check that off. What will end up happening if you don't, it will sync to your current attitude, but then it will never move. You'll be kind of locked in there. So you want both. Let's go back. You're going to want the pitch sync release press and pitch sync release. But I tell you, words are hard already. You want those both on the same button, whichever you choose. And then in the release, you're going to want to have set control on release. That's the only one you're going to have that. So let's go back. And you can see here, I don't have that checked. So just a little tip that will make your flying, I think, a lot easier in the 600. Okay, so let's go back and let's restart the flight, and I'll show you what we're planning on doing today. All right, everybody, I am back with you. Hope you found that useful. It really, quite frankly, confused me at the first couple times I did it until I kind of figured out, and it's now extremely helpful. All right, so once again, let's cover what we're going to do. I'm going to do an engine failure right after takeoff. I tried to do this right at what we call in the jet the B1 speed, right at rotation, and I made a couple off-runway excursions. I never could quite get off the ground. So we're just going to do it right after liftoff. And so what's the emergency procedure? I have found in the Aero Commander organization, I have found a checklist, and I will leave you the pilot's operating handbook. I'll leave a link in the description below. But what we're going to do is throttles to full open, props full forward, mixture full rich, maintain directional control. We're going to want that auxiliary fuel pump on. Then we're going to need to get that gear up, and eventually we need to secure the engine. Now, I know a lot of people, especially who have not flown aircraft in real life, probably thinking, what's kind of the big deal? That's why you have two engines. And I would suggest to you that actually, in a lot of instances, unless you are fully prepared and trained, two engines can be just as dangerous as flying with one. I can tell you, when I was doing skydiving, that probably the most dangerous phase or part of skydiving was the actual plane ride up as we're getting off the ground. There are a lot of instances of people doing the wrong thing with the engine. So, which kind of leads me to another point, and it's something I had to personally work on when I came over from helicopters. Remember, in a helicopter, from the time I have an engine failure before I need to lower that collective, all the way down before I have a catastrophic blade stall, that is not recoverable. In a light aircraft, like an R-22, 44, 47's a little bit better, maybe a Hughes 300, you're talking maybe once the engine stops till that collective has to be full down on the stop in the auto rotation state, maybe a second and a half. From the time the engine has quit till the time you are on the ground, since you're flying around at 500 feet, under 30 seconds. And so one of the things I had to adjust my flow or how I proceeded in the aircraft, especially fixed wing, was in a helicopter, I'm immediately doing a lot of stuff, flipping buttons, moving things. In an aircraft, that will absolutely kill you. Almost every time when I flew an aircraft, you were kind of just taught, take a breath, think about what you're doing, then perform the action. And there are sadly, a lot of people who do the wrong thing at the wrong time in a multi-engine aircraft, and it costs them. All right, so The important thing is identifying the engine that is out. I know that seems pretty basic for everybody. Like, why are you telling me this? It's because there are a lot of real world pilots who have identified the wrong engine and killed themselves and everybody around them. All right. So one of the ways that we identify the engine that has failed is we want to maintain directional control. So keep the nose pointed straight ahead to the best that we can. And then the nose of the aircraft will yaw in the direction of the dead engine. Or as we would say, a simple memory pneumatic is dead foot, dead engine. And when I was flying twin engine, what I would do, not in the jet, but in, let's say, a turboprop like this, I would take literally my foot off the rudder pedals to help me identify the engine. And I would literally, in this instance, we are going to cut the left engine. And the reason that is the left engine is the critical engine in a twin aircraft, unless it's got counter-rotating props. I don't want to get into aerodynamics. Just know that it's harder with the left engine dead. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull that left engine. I'm just going to pull back on the mixture. So not so much of a surprise. We're still going to have to deal with it. It's kind of like training. So normally in this instance, I would take my left foot and literally physically take it off the rudder pedals. I would literally then kind of almost hit my left leg in this instance and confirm as I looked at the throttles that I'm pulling the right throttle, the right prop, the right mixture. Okay. So I don't want to get too bogged down in actualities, but you're going to see once we take off, I'm in this instance going to need a lot of right rudder pedal to keep the nose basically pointed straight ahead. I'm also going to need to start trimming out. And so what we're just going to do here is take off. Right after takeoff, I'm going to pull the engine back, the mixture, and kill it. And then we're just going to move through the emergency procedure and just swing around one large traffic pattern. Hopefully we'll pick up the ILS, and if I do everything correctly, and then we'll just bring it into a landing on a single engine. All right, so that is the plan. So, all right, everybody, I am back with you. You may not even notice I was gone, but as soon as I went to take off, my Tobii eye tracker, which I just switched to last week, stopped working. So I just thought I'd do a reset real quick. So we are still ready to go, and let's get going. All right, so coming up around 80, 85 knots, right about there, we'll go ahead and rotate. And as we rotate, we will pull an engine. See a pretty large pitch yaw to the left. We're gonna have to nose over a little bit, and we need to get that gear up right now. We got a lot of drag in there. We're just trying to keep it straight ahead. All right, at this point, I think we've done some of the hardest thing. We want to get those props full forward, mixture full forward, and now we're barely eking out there, right about 100 to 300 feet per minute rate of descent, holding around 100 knots. But that prop has got a lot of drag to it. So we want to verify that it's the number one engine or the left engine. So we will pull back on the throttle, see if there's any change. Nope, no change. All right, so we verified the left engine. Let's look at our left prop, and now we're going to pull back on our left prop. Starts to feather and now we're going to put ourselves back into trim. Look at that turn coordinator. Our goal is to keep ourselves in trim as much as we can, which is the most aerodynamically efficient. And now check out our VSI. Now we're really starting to climb and accelerate. So that's the very first thing you want to do. And at this point, then we'd also pull our mixture back, which we've already done. And so now I'm just going to start giving myself a lot of yaw trim so I don't have to cast so much pressure on my right foot to keep that ball centered. And let's get back on heading here. And right, they said right around 100 knots is kind of our climb out speed. I'm just kind of making some more yaw adjustments so I can take a little bit of that pressure out. And we're going to keep climbing up to, I think, around 2,000 feet or so. At this point, let us go ahead and start a turn 90 degrees to the left, right about there. And then we can use our command bars or the reset to kind of give us a rough idea of kind of what kind of pitch attitude, so we can follow the command bars. Makes our job a little bit easier. We're kind of still gradually climbing up. Let's look out to the left there. There's the airport. And in the real world, we're not going to want to get too far away from the shoreline. So make another 90-degree turn here, and let's get ourselves onto a downwind. As we're coming up on 2,000 feet here, just let ourselves start to accelerate a little bit. Once again, trim will be our friend here. All right, now as we're coming up here, let's go ahead and we'll resync up our command bars a little bit. Right about there. And let's go ahead and engage our autopilot. Take some of the workload out. Come down here, we'll hold altitude. Make sure we're looking okay here. So take out a little bit more trim, just looking at that trim indicator. Once again, trying to get that ball nice and centered. And we are on heading and out. We're level. And if we look over at our JPI, we can see we are really starting to overcook our engine. So we can pull back a little bit. Bring our manifold pressure back down to about 25. We can do our props right back to about 25. At this point, now we just want to program in our approach. So we're getting a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do is just kind of head us along the shoreline. And we'll come down here to flight plan. Put in a destination, TJSJ. So you can imagine in the real world, this would be an incredible amount of work as you're trying to get a flight plan in here. So a lot of times what we do in the airline is we actually will have a secondary flight plan, which is an immediate return back to where we took off from. So, all right, let's go back. Then we're going to check for procedure. We're going to do approach. Probably zoom in here a little bit, make ourselves easier. Approach, ILS 10 left, and we're going to load that approach. And I know from previous that it's going to be a 109.7 is going to be our localizer frequency. Our course will be 101. It's from being down into San Juan's like my second home. All right, let's zoom out just a little bit, see where we're at. And once again, let's get a little bit further out towards over the shore so we don't get ourselves jammed up. We can see our magenta line. REMZ is at 1500. So what I'm going to want to do, and REMZ is just about, you can't see my cursor, but if you look down at our moving map here, we can see REMZ right there at 1500. And we are at 2000. So we want to get ourselves too jammed up a little bit. Anyways, I hope you guys kind of find this stuff useful and informative. You know, a lot of times we're just going from point A to point B and using all of our systems. But here I thought we would try and do something a little bit different. And as I said, I think I'll double check, and you will have already seen it. I might even have a crash or two on takeoff that I recorded. All right, so let's take a real quick look. I also mentioned at one point that we need to get, I think I called it the hydraulic fuel pump. It's actually this hydraulic boost pump right there. And that is, I believe, I'm not a big expert, is for the hydraulic system. If you were to lose the right engine, you'd want to put that on. But you know what I said is we were taking off, man, aviate, navigate, communicate, and trying to get the most important thing was getting that gear up, reducing that drag, getting that engine secured, reducing drag. And you saw the immediate benefit of doing that. All right, so let's kind of have parallel course here. All right, so we should be just outside Remsey. Tanner will be, if I look down at the map, should be just a little bit further out. How do I know that? Because I've been in here about 100 times. All right, so what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and start a turn back towards final. Zoom in here a little bit. Now that we are doing this, we don't need to be in the GPS mode. What we're going to want to do is select here the CDI or V-lock. If we look at our HSI, now we see the glide slope there coming up. And that's exactly what we want to see underneath glide path, so we can meet it. I'm probably a little bit more of a, so we keep on coming around. See if we're going to overshoot. That's why I wanted to go a little bit wider. Now we got ourselves a little bit of time. And keep it coming. All right, that's probably good enough. Let's come down to our autopilot, and now we can select approach and glide slope and see where we sit at. All right, there's our runway straight ahead. Looks good. Give ourselves just a little bit more lateral trim here. We're gonna have to make some adjustments anyways. And we've already picked up the glide slope, so let's go ahead and pull out a little bit of power. And let's go ahead and bring our gear down right now and get ourselves trimmed out the best we can. Once again, that's going to be a tremendous amount of drag. Now, the max flaps you can use on this is 20. All right, 500-600 feet per minute rate of descent. That checks right on our localizer. And let's bring in 1 notch of flaps. You got to be very careful as you're introducing flaps, as they are huge, huge drags. Elements for us. So we want to try to keep this as stabilized as we can. You need a little bit more pedal in here. Once again, try to get that ball centered, which, as I mentioned before, is our most aerodynamically efficient state in trim. All right, coming up on 1,000 feet, we've got our first notch of flaps in. We can go one more, 20. Let's take a look at it right there. All right, so 105 knots. Let's go ahead and bring in 20 degrees of flaps right there. That is it. Check our airspeed. Fast is better than slow. Check our trim. That looks good. So we're just constantly monitoring. Now, in the real world, or not in the real world, I guess the real world for training, I would have had to have had the autopilot off the whole way, all the way back once we got to final approach fix. All right, airspeed's starting to creep up, so I can pull out a little bit of power. Again, I will take fast over slow. But in this real world where if I was to do this in real life, obviously I would ride the autopilot like I'm doing right now, almost the entire way down. Those are starting to pitch up right now, so I'll just kick it off. I don't know if you saw the nose start to creep there. And we can just fly the last little bit without the autopilot like I'm doing now. So use all the automation you can. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually the correct way of doing stuff as I get myself over here to center line. White over white, that's fine. Got a lot of runway. And once again, I'd rather be a little bit high and a little bit fast. Let's pull out a little bit right here. Pull the throttle, try to keep that nose straight. Center line, throttle all the way out. All right, so that is it. That is a single engine approach to the ILS. So definitely if you have a study level aircraft, I think it's totally worth doing. It's definitely worth, oh, I love that clapping, as you all know. I think it's definitely worth doing for practice, and you can really see how difficult it will be once you experience it. So, everyone, I appreciate all the like, support, and comments the channel's been getting. It's really been doing very well lately, and I don't think we're going to have a video out tomorrow. I'm actually going to be flying the line as opposed to my series I have. I'm actually heading down to Tampa for a real quick turn and back, and I'm hoping to start, if you guys stuck with me this long, I'm hoping to start live streaming hopefully next week. So I've been spending a lot of time getting that ready. So you can see what I'm like when I don't get the benefit of doing multiple takes. Hint, it's not great. Anyways, guys, I appreciate all the support. I will catch you all in the next one. Take care for now.